somewhere right now. A pharmaceutical company is paying over $1,000 a pound for a root that grows in the shade of trees most farmers consider worthless. A perfume house whose bottles cost more than a month's rent is sending buyers to remote fields to secure something that no laboratory has successfully synthesized. And a chef in one of the world's most expensive restaurants is rationing a green paste so rare that he measures it by the gram and guards his supplier's name like a trade secret. None of these ingredients come from factory farms. None of them are traded on commodity exchanges. And almost none of the farmers growing them learned about these plants from a government agriculture program or a mainstream farming magazine. They learned by looking sideways at the crops everyone else ignored, at the margins everyone else dismissed, at the patience everyone else refused to practice. Today we are going to do the same. We are pulling back the curtain on 12 plants, 12 living, growing assets that have been quietly building wealth for farmers on small plots of land, while the rest of the agricultural world chased commodity prices to the bottom. Some of these have been traded as currency. One of them has been described in sacred texts as a gift reserved for kings. At least two of them thrive on land most farmers would abandon. And the one we are saving for last number one on our list has made more families wealthy from a single acre than almost any other crop currently available to small-scale growers. Most people have never considered planting it. The ones who did are not talking. Stay with me through all 12. The plant that changes your direction might not be the one you expect. Number 12. Aloe vera, the succulent that scales. It looks humble, a thick-leafed succulent that demands little and complains about almost nothing. Most people who grow aloe vera keep a single pot in their kitchen, snap off a leaf when they burn their hand, and never think of it as a commercial proposition. That gap between perception and market reality is exactly where the opportunity lives. Walk into any pharmacy, cosmetic aisle, or supplement section and count how many products list aloe vera as an ingredient. The number is staggering. Behind every one of those products is a supply chain that begins in a field, and that supply chain is far smaller than the demand it serves. The raw leaf market is the entry point, but it is the lowest rung of a very tall ladder. The processed gel market, stabilized, filtered, cold-filled into bottles sold to skincare brands and functional beverage manufacturers, is where margins start to become serious. Dehydrated aloe powder, used by pharmaceutical companies and nutraceutical manufacturers for capsule and tablet formulations, is where the economics become exceptional. What changes at each level is not the crop. It is the amount of the final product's value that the farmer captures, rather than surrendering to a middleman. Here is what most farmers never discover. The acemonin content of aloe vera, the long-chain polysaccharide, responsible for most of its documented biological activity, degrades rapidly after harvest and is almost entirely destroyed by problem nuisance, heat processing. This means high acemonin. Cold-processed aloe commands a premium tier that commodity-grade product cannot access. A farmer who learns to harvest at the right leaf maturity, chill immediately, and cold process without degrading the active fraction is not competing in the same market as a bulk producer. They are in a separate category, with separate buyers, and prices that reflect it. Aloe thrives in semi-arid conditions and poor soils that challenge other crops. It requires minimal maintenance, resists most pests naturally, and produces for years from the same planting. The low cost of production, combined with high demand from skincare, health, food, and pharmaceutical industries, creates a margin structure that is genuinely difficult to replicate with more demanding crops. The aloe vera farmer who understands the acemonin story is not running a produce operation. They are running a specialty biochemical supply business. That reframing changes everything about how you grow, process, and sell. Number 11. Lavender, the farm that sells a feeling. Lavender may be the only crop on this list that can be sold simultaneously as a product, an experience, and a destination. Most farmers think about their land in terms of weight and price per pound. Lavender farmers think about what their land can make people feel, and then they sell that feeling at every level of the market. The essential oil is the headline product, and the economics are compelling. Steam distilled lavender oil from high-altitude varieties, particularly the true lavender, Lavandula angustifolia, rather than the hybrid lavandin, commonly used in cleaning products, commands prices from aromatherapy houses, cosmetic formulators, and pharmaceutical manufacturers that reflect its genuine scarcity and chemical complexity. The linalool and linalool acetate content of true lavender, which governs its anxiolytic and sleep-supporting properties, is chemically distinct from lavandin. Buyers know the difference. Suppliers who can prove the distinction through third-party testing access a price tier that bulk producers cannot reach. But the secondary income streams are where lavender farms often surpass their primary production income. Farm tourism during bloom season. You pick experiences. Photography sessions. Distillation workshops. These generate revenue without a single pound of product being processed. The lavender farm becomes a brand. And the brand earns in ways that purely transactional farming never does. What almost no lavender grower talks about publicly is the potpourri and sachets market for culinary-grade dried flowers in Asia, particularly Japan, where Hokkaido lavender has achieved cultural icon status and dried product from authenticated origins, commands import premiums that European growers have been quietly exploiting for decades. Western growers, with provenance documentation and strong photography, have begun to access the same channel. Lavender is long-lived, perennial, and drought-tolerant once established. A single acre, managed with precision and marketed with creativity, can generate income that most farmers achieve only from operations 5 times that size. The ceiling is determined almost entirely by how far the farmer is willing to go beyond the raw ingredient. Number 10. Garlic. The everyday crop with a luxury secret. Garlic suffers from familiarity. It is in every kitchen, every grocery store, every culture's cooking. Farmers see bulk garlic at commodity prices and assume the market is closed. That assumption is wrong, and the farmers who understand why are building serious income from this profoundly misunderstood crop. The garlic market is stratified in a way that most growers never investigate. At the bottom is commodity bulk garlic, imported at low prices and sold by weight, often from industrial operations where flavor and medicinal potency are incidental to yield. At the top is something else entirely, specialty garlic, specifically the hardneck heirloom varieties rocambole, purple stripe, porcelain with flavor profiles so complex and allicin concentrations so high that chefs and health-conscious consumers pay premiums that the commodity market cannot come close to matching. The allicin story is where the specialty farmer finds their scientific edge. Allicin, the sulfur compound responsible for garlic's documented antimicrobial and cardiovascular properties, is not present in intact garlic at all. It is produced enzymatically when garlic is crushed or cut, through the interaction of the precursor compound alliin with the enzyme alliinase. And here's what almost no one tells the home cook or the commodity buyer. That reaction requires approximately 10 minutes to complete. Garlic that is cooked immediately after cutting has not produced its full allicin content. Let it rest for 10 minutes after crushing before applying heat, and you preserve a dramatically higher concentration of the active compound. Farmers who sell their hardneck garlic with that preparation story attached, who market the allicin advantage and the specific flavor profiles of their heritage varieties, are not selling produce. They are selling knowledge, identity, and measurable nutritional superiority. That repositioning unlocks restaurant accounts, farm stand premiums, and direct-to-consumer relationships that bulk garlic can never access. Garlic stores exceptionally well. Giving the strategic farmer timing, leverage the ability to hold and sell through winter when supply tightens and prices climb. That single adjustment in sales timing can transform the annual income picture. Processed garlic, Black garlic. Garlic powder. Fermented garlic honey multiplies the value further still. Number 9. Turmeric. The golden root of modern commerce. Turmeric has crossed from kitchen spice to global health phenomenon. And the farmers who position themselves early are now operating in a market where demand consistently outpaces supply. Anti-inflammatory supplements. Functional beverages. Skincare serums. Pharmaceutical preparations for arthritis research. Turmeric is no longer one market, it is everywhere simultaneously. The critical factor in turmeric's profitability is curcumin content, the polyphenol compound that drives the health benefits buyers are purchasing. Roots with high curcumin concentrations command prices that can be double or triple the commodity rate. What most farmers don't know is that curcumin content is profoundly influenced by harvest timing. Roots harvested at 8 to 9 months consistently show higher curcuminoid concentrations than those pulled at 6 months for fresh market sale. Soil phosphorus levels are also strongly correlated with curcumin density. An investment in soil chemistry directly translates into a premium at the point of sale. But there is a bioavailability story that the most sophisticated turmeric farmers are beginning to tell their buyers. And it is changing the value conversation entirely. Curcumin on its own is poorly absorbed by the human body. Combined with piperine, the active compound in black pepper absorption increases by up to 2.000%. According to research published in the journal Planta Medica, turmeric farmers who co-produce and co-market a black pepper blend, or who supply buyers in the supplement industry already formulating for enhanced bioavailability, are capturing a tier of the market that the commodity root cannot reach. Processing is where turmeric's value multiplies. Raw roots have one price. Properly dried and ground turmeric powder carries another. Standardized turmeric extract, assayed for curcuminoid percentage and certified for pharmaceutical buyers, operates in an entirely different price universe. Farmers willing to invest in even basic drying and milling equipment can capture a significantly larger share of the final product's value money that currently flows to processors who add nothing to the plant itself. Number 8. Ginger. The commodity that thinks like a luxury product. The mistake most farmers make with ginger is treating it like a common produce crop, growing it, boxing it, and watching it sell at the same price everyone else accepts. The farmers who build real wealth with ginger don't make that mistake. They understand that ginger is not a single product. It is a platform. Fresh root, dried root, powdered spice, ginger extract, ginger oil, ginger tea blends, ginger capsules for the nausea and digestive supplement market. Each of these is a different buyer with a different price point. The raw root sold at a farmer's market is the lowest rung. Organic ginger extract sold to a supplement manufacturer is 5 rungs higher. Same plant. Completely different economics. What most ginger growers don't discuss publicly is the difference between early harvest and mature harvest. Ginger, a distinction with major commercial implications. Young ginger, harvested at 3 to 4 months, is thin-skinned, meal, and high in moisture, preferred by the fresh culinary market. The pickled ginger processor, and the beverage industry. Mature ginger, pulled at 8 to 10 months, is dense, in the fibrous, pungent, and high in gingerols and shogols, the compounds responsible for its documented anti-nausea, anti-inflammatory, and thermogenic effects. Supplement manufacturers and pharmaceutical buyers want matured roots with high gingerol assays. That specification creates a premium tier invisible to the general market. Ginger also holds a distinction that almost no farmer thinks to exploit. It is one of the few culinary crops with a documented clinical evidence base strong enough to appear in hospital protocols. Ginger extract is used in oncology settings to manage chemotherapy-induced nausea, a context where the buyer is an institution. The price is non-negotiable upward. and supply reliability matters more than cost. Farmers who can produce to pharmaceutical specification and supply institutional buyers have stepped out of agriculture and into healthcare supply. That is a different business entirely. Number 7. Vanilla. The crop that rewards the patient master. Vanilla is the second most expensive spice in the world, after saffron. And like saffron, its price is protected by a process that refuses to be rushed and cannot be mechanized. The vanilla orchid, Vanilla planifolia, produces flowers of extraordinary delicacy that open for a single day. In their native habitat in Mexico, they were pollinated by a specific species of Melipona bee that exists nowhere else on Earth. When vanilla cultivation spread to Madagascar, Réunion, and Tahiti in the 19th century, that bee did not travel with it. Every vanilla flower grown outside Mexico must be pollinated by hand, within hours of opening, with a small wooden tool or the tip of a bamboo splinter. Miss the window, and there is no fruit. That single constraint, the impossibility of mechanization, is what keeps vanilla priced where it is, and what protects every farmer who masters the technique. The hand pollination requirement is not a burden. It is a wall that keeps the competition thin. What most vanilla farmers don't discuss openly is the curing process, which is where the flavor of vanilla is actually created. Fresh vanilla beans have no vanillin aroma at all. The characteristic scent develops through a months-long enzymatic process, blanching, sweating, slow drying, and conditioning a sequence that, done poorly, produces flat, harsh, or moldy beans, and done well, produces beans that sell at prices rivaling saffron by weight. The bourbon curing method, developed in Réunion in the 19th century, remains the benchmark for premium product. But Tahitian vanilla from the Vanilla tahitensis species, rather than planifolia, contains higher concentrations of heliotropin and anisyl compounds that produce a floral, cherry-like note prized by French pastry chefs and perfumers. Tahitian beans from verified provenance command prices significantly above even premium Madagascar bourbon. Farmers in appropriate climates who learn the Tahitian variety and its curing protocols are entering a niche where the number of reliable suppliers can be counted on one hand. Buyers of premium vanilla are not transactional. They are relational. Food manufacturers, perfume houses, cosmetic brands, and gourmet chocolate makers want a source they can trust across years. The farmer who delivers consistent quality and honors every commitment builds buyer relationships that compound in value over time. In vanilla farming, the repeat customer is where true wealth is created. Number 6. Wasabi. The rarest crop in commercial agriculture. The majority of consumers who have eaten what a restaurant menu called wasabi have never tasted the real thing. What they received was horseradish, mustard powder, and green food coloring, a blend so normalized that most chefs who serve it have stopped feeling the need to disclose it. Real wasabi, Wasabia japonica, is one of the most challenging and most lucrative crops in commercial agriculture. The isothiocyanates, responsible for its distinctive sharp, fleeting heat, are volatile compounds that dissipate within 15 minutes of the rhizome being grated. No processing, no pasteurization, no packaging can preserve them. Real wasabi must be consumed fresh. That constraint makes it immune to industrial production and permanently protects the premium commanded by farmers who can supply restaurants within hours of harvest. The growing conditions required by wasabi cool temperatures between 8 and 20 degrees Celsius, clean moving water with specific mineral content, high humidity, and dappled shade read like a list of reasons to walk away. Most farmers do walk away. The ones who lean in discover that those exact requirements are what keep the competition permanently thin. There is a market detail about wasabi that almost no one outside the specialty restaurant supply trade is aware of. The leaves and stems of the wasabi plant are themselves a commercial product Wasabi leaves, pickled in salt and sake, are a traditional condiment in Japanese cuisine, wasabi-zuke, and command premium prices from Japanese importers and authentic Japanese restaurants globally. Wasabi flowers, which appear briefly in spring, are sold as microgreens to high-end culinary buyers at prices that exceed the rhizome per unit weight. The farmer who understands wasabi as a whole plant operation, rhizome, leaf, stem, and flower earns from a crop that the one-dimensional grower leaves significant money behind. Mastery over volume. The farmer who grows one thing extraordinarily well consistently out-earns the farmer who grows many things adequately. Wasabi teaches that principle with unusual clarity. If this kind of deep, strategic agricultural knowledge is useful to you, hit the like button and subscribe, because what's coming next gets even more specific and even more profitable. Number 5. Saffron, the red thread of real wealth. There is a reason saffron has been traded as currency. Gifted to royalty, used to dye the robes of Buddhist monks, and written into the poetry of 3,000 years of human civilization. Weight for weight, in various periods of history, it has been worth more than gold. And in an era of growing global demand for premium ingredients, that status has not diminished. The Ebers Papyrus, one of the oldest surviving medical documents on Earth, compiled around 1550 BCE, in Egypt lists saffron among the ingredients in preparations for eye conditions, menstrual regulation, and mood disturbance. The ancient Persian court maintained saffron cultivation on a scale designed not only for culinary use, but for documented therapeutic application. Cleopatra reportedly bathed in saffron-infused water before meetings she considered consequential. These cultures were not wasting their most expensive agricultural product on superstition. They were using it consistently because consistent use produced consistent results. Modern research has been characterizing the active compounds that explain those results. Crocin and quercetin, the carotenoids responsible for saffron's distinctive color, have shown antidepressant activity in clinical trials that some researchers describe as comparable in effect size to pharmaceutical antidepressants, with a significantly different side effect profile. Zafranol, the volatile compound responsible for saffron's aroma, has demonstrated anxiolytic properties in animal models, with results consistent enough to have attracted serious research funding. A clinical trial published in the Journal of Affective Disorders found that 30 milligrams of saffron extract daily produced outcomes in mild to moderate depression, statistically comparable to fluoxetine. That finding, cautious, preliminary, but peer-reviewed and reproduced, has sent supplement manufacturers looking for consistent, high-crocin saffron supply. The price of saffron rests on one undeniable arithmetic fact. It takes approximately 150,000 to do a cento. 000 hand-harvested Crocus sativus flowers to produce a single kilogram of dried threads. The harvesting window for each flower is 48 hours. And the stigmas must be removed the same morning the flower opens. No mechanization has successfully replicated this without loss of product quality or yield. Every farmer scared away by that complexity is one fewer competitor in a market that never stops being hungry. Saffron flowers in the cooler months autumn in most growing regions, meaning it generates income in a season when many other crops are dormant. Once dried and properly stored in airtight, light-protected conditions, saffron holds its value and potency for years. The farmer who grows saffron is not just growing a spice. They are producing a commodity with the storage characteristics of gold and the documentation trail of a pharmaceutical ingredient. That combination is genuinely rare in agriculture. Number 4. Ashwagandha, ancient medicine, modern fortune. For over 3,000 years, Withania somnifera has been described in Ayurvedic medicine as a rasayana, a rejuvenating tonic compound reserved for those seeking to restore vitality depleted by age, illness, or extraordinary exertion. Ancient Ayurvedic texts, including the Charaka Samhita, compiled between the 1st and 2nd centuries CE, prescribe ashwagandha, root boiled in milk with honey and ghee as a treatment for emaciation, impotence, and premature aging. Soldiers in the armies of ancient India reportedly carried dried ashwagandha root on campaigns as a means of maintaining physical endurance under sustained stress. Chinese and Unani medical traditions reached similar conclusions independently. The convergence of three pharmacological traditions on the same root across cultures, with no documented contact in their classical periods, is the kind of evidence pattern that serious researchers take as a signal worth investigating. Modern investigation has been extensive. Withanolides, the steroidal lactone compounds unique to Withania somnifera, have been shown in multiple double-blind clinical trials to reduce serum cortisol levels, improve markers of physical performance and muscle recovery, support thyroid function in subclinical hypothyroidism, and improve cognitive processing speed and memory in older adults. A study published in the Indian Journal of Psychological Medicine found a 44% reduction in perceived stress scores in subjects taking standardized ashwagandha extract versus placebo, with results described by the researchers as clinically and statistically significant. Here is what the commercial farming landscape has not yet widely understood: with analyte content in ashwagandha root is not fixed. It varies significantly by variety, soil type, and harvest timing. The Nagori variety from Rajasthan, grown in specific mineral-rich, sandy loam soils, consistently produces roots with higher withanolide concentrations than varieties grown in different regions. Pharmaceutical-grade buyers, the manufacturers who need to standardize their capsule formulations to a verified 5% or 2.5% withanolide content, pay a premium for roots with documented assay results. A farmer who can provide a certificate of analysis from a third-party laboratory is selling into a different market than a farmer who cannot. Ashwagandha grows in warm, semi-arid conditions with low input requirements. The combination of low cost of production and high demand from supplement manufacturers who cannot source enough pharmaceutical-grade root creates a return on investment ratio that is among the most favorable currently available in medicinal crop agriculture. Farmers sitting on dry, marginal land and assuming it is worthless should look carefully at this plant. Number 3. Moringa, the tree that never stops paying. If ashwagandha is the slow burn with the pharmaceutical payoff, moringa is the workhorse that never clocks out. Plant it once in almost any warm climate with even modest rainfall, and for years it keeps generating leaves, pods, seeds, and oil in a production cycle that seems to have no natural end. The Sushruta Samhita, one of the foundational texts of Ayurvedic surgery, compiled around the 3rd century CE, describes moringa as having over 300 medicinal applications, a hyperbole, perhaps, but one that reflects how central this tree was to ancient Indian medicine. The ancient Egyptians extracted moringa oil to preserve their skin in the desert climate, placing ceramic pots of it in tombs so the deceased could continue using it. Roman historians documented moringa being traded across the Mediterranean as a luxury cosmetic ingredient worth more than most other botanical oils. 3 civilizations, separated by thousands of miles, independently reaching the same conclusion about the same tree over the same centuries. The modern science has been catching up. Moringa leaves contain isothiocyanates, the same class of sulfur compounds responsible for the health properties of broccoli and wasabi, in concentrations that researchers at Johns Hopkins have identified as potentially significant in supporting cellular detoxification pathways. The leaves are also among the most nutritionally dense of any plant material studied gram for gram. Dried moringa leaf powder contains approximately 9 times the protein of yogurt, 10 times the vitamin A of carrots, and 15 times the potassium of bananas, according to nutritional analyses published in the journal Food Science and Nutrition. These comparisons are dramatic enough to sound like marketing, but they have been reproduced in peer-reviewed settings and reflect the genuinely unusual amino acid and micronutrient profile of this plant. What gives moringa its financial power for the farmer is flexibility. Fresh leaves sold locally. Dried leaf powder sold to regional health food distributors. Microencapsulated powder sold to supplement manufacturers requiring extended shelf stability. Seeds cold pressed into oil for the cosmetic market, moringa oil has an unusually high oleic acid content and exceptional oxidative stability, making it a preferred carrier oil for luxury skincare formulations. The Ben oil fraction in moringa seed oil has been used in watch manufacturing and fine mechanical lubrication since the 18th century. A farmer growing moringa is not producing a single product. They are running multiple income streams from the same trees. Moringa also responds aggressively to coppicing, the practice of cutting the trunk back hard to force lateral branch production and leaf density. Farmers who coppice on a 45-day cycle can dramatically increase leaf yield compared to those who allow unchecked vertical growth. The tree they have is not the ceiling. Their management of it is. Number 2. Ginseng, the underground investor. Most people who walk past a ginseng plant don't realize they are walking past money. Not crop money, investment money. The kind that compounds quietly underground while everything around it gets planted, harvested, sold, and forgotten. Panax ginseng appears in the Shennong Bencao Jing, the classic of herbal medicine, attributed to the mythic Chinese emperor Shennong and compiled in written form around 200 CE as the most important of all tonic herbs. Classified in the highest tier of medicines, reserved for extending life and restoring vital energy. The root commanded prices in the imperial court that made it effectively inaccessible to ordinary citizens. Korean historical records document wars fought in part over control of wild ginseng-producing forests. Native American nations of the eastern United States held Panax quinquefolius, the American species, as a sacred plant with trade value that colonial settlers exploited so aggressively that wild populations were devastated within a century. 3 distinct pharmacological traditions: Chinese, Korean, and indigenous North American, developing independently on different continents, all reaching the same conclusion about the same genus of plant. That pattern demands attention. The ginsenosides, the triterpenoid saponin compounds unique to Panax species, have been the subject of thousands of peer-reviewed studies across 5 decades. Their documented effects on cognitive function, immune modulation, physical endurance, and glucose metabolism represent one of the most substantial bodies of evidence in all of phytopharmacology. The challenge for researchers has been characterizing which specific ginsenoside fractions produce, which affects a complexity that explains why the clinical literature is extensive but sometimes inconsistent. What is clear is that wild simulated roots, aged 6 years or more, contain ginsenoside profiles and concentrations that cultivated, quickly grown roots cannot match. And buyers know this. Wild simulated ginseng, grown in forest conditions, mimicking natural habitat, without raised beds or artificial inputs, aged 6 years or more, commands prices that most farmers stop and reread the first time they see the number. Hundreds of dollars per pound. In established sales channels, sometimes over 1,000. That price is protected by time. And time is the one input that cannot be purchased at scale. Here is what most farmers never discover. Ginseng thrives in shade, forested land, wooded slopes, tree-covered plots that most conventional farmers consider useless or unproductive. That is exactly where ginseng performs best. Suddenly, land that has been generating nothing becomes one of your most productive assets. The farmers who win with ginseng are not the fastest. They are the most patient, the most consistent, and the most strategically committed to a timeline the rest of the market refuses to honor. Plant today. Wait 6 years. Let time do what money cannot buy. When the harvest comes, it comes heavy. Number 1. Vetiver, the root that holds the earth and earns the gold. Almost no one outside the fragrance industry has heard of vetiver. Inside that industry, it is not just known, it is irreplaceable in a way that almost no other botanical material is. Vetiver chrysopogon zizanioides appears in Sanskrit texts from the 1st millennium CE under the name Ushira, described as a cooling herb used to treat fever and heat exhaustion. Woven into screens and curtains that were dampened with water so that the evaporating moisture carried the root's fragrance through the house. In Tamil Nadu, it is still used this way. In South India and Sri Lanka, vetiver root mats have been a staple of summer heat management for over 1,000 years. Maharajas had their sleeping chambers hung with vetiver screens. Mughal emperors used vetiver in the attar perfumes of their courts. The plant has been cooling and scenting the Indian subcontinent since before written history. In the West, vetiver entered the perfume trade in earnest in the 20th century and has never left. The essential oil distilled from vetiver roots after 18 to 24 months of growth and a labor-intensive washing, drying, and steam distillation process produces one of the most complex aromatic materials in all of perfumery. Smoky, earthy, deeply woody, with green and citrus overtones that emerge slowly over hours on the skin. Perfumers describe it as a fixative, an aromatic anchor that extends and deepens the other materials in a formula and slows their evaporation from the skin. Without it, many signature luxury fragrances would lose their staying power entirely. Major fragrance houses Chanel, Guerlain, Dior, Hermès use vetiver as a foundational material in multiple products. Hermès vetiver tonka is built around it. Guerlain vetiver has been in continuous production since 1961. These are not trend-dependent products. They are legacy fragrances, manufactured by institutions, with multi-generational planning horizons and contractual supply relationships that prioritize quality and reliability over price sensitivity. The chemistry of vetiver oil is extraordinarily complex, over 100 identified molecular components, including cusimol, isovalencenol, and vetiselinenol, in ratios that vary by growing region, in ways that perfumers can detect and that buyers specifically request. Haitian vetiver is described as dry and woody. Java vetiver is softer and sweeter. Indian vetiver from Rajasthan, considered by many perfumers the most complex, commands to the highest prices. That regional specificity means a farmer who establishes vetiver in an emerging growing region and develops a distinctive aromatic profile has created something that cannot be replicated by moving production elsewhere. Synthetic vetiver substitutes exist. Perfumers use them where cost demands it. But in fine fragrance in the products where the brand promise is authenticity, craftsmanship, and irreplicable sensory experience, synthetic substitutes are not acceptable. The demand for genuine vetiver oil from quality sources is structural. It does not follow wellness trends or social media cycles. It follows the fragrance industry's product calendars, which are planned 5 to 10 years in advance. Beyond perfumery, vetiver's commercial applications extend in a direction most growers have not yet explored. The root system of vetiver grass grows nearly vertically, plunging deep into the soil rather than spreading laterally, a growth architecture that makes it one of the most effective plants on Earth for erosion control and slope stabilization. The World Bank has supported vetiver system planting in over 100 countries as a bioengineering tool for land rehabilitation. That institutional demand for live plant material for slips and nursery stock, not harvested roots, represents a secondary market most vetiver growers have never entered. The same plant produces two separate income streams from two separate buyer categories. The grass itself tolerates drought, flooding, poor soils, high salinity, and temperatures from near freezing to over 55 degrees Celsius. Establishment is straightforward. The long growing period before harvest is the primary commitment, and that commitment is, as with ginseng, the protective wall. Farmers who won't wait 3 years before their first distillation cannot compete with the farmer who will. You are not selling a commodity when you sell vetiver oil to a luxury fragrance house. You are supplying a raw material that a global luxury brand has put on every bottle it ships to every high-end retailer in the world. That positioning supplier to institutions that sell experiences, not just products, is where the greatest pricing power in all of specialty agriculture resides. Right now, I want to ask you a direct question. Of the 12 plants we have covered today, which one fits your land, your climate, and your realistic timeline? Is it the patience play of ginseng, compounding underground, while other crops come and go? Is it moringa, immediate, versatile, and relentlessly productive in warm climates? Is it saffron, earning in the quiet season when the rest of your operation is dormant? Or is it vetiver, the root almost no one knows, supplying an industry that has been buying it continuously for 60 years and shows no sign of stopping? Tell me in the comments, and tell me why. There is one thing that runs through every plant on today's list, and it is worth saying plainly before we close. Every premium that separates these crops from commodity agriculture, every dollar that a wasabi grower earns above the horseradish farmer, every price advantage that the wild simulated ginseng grower has over the raised bed operation, is a premium built on integrity of the active compound. And that integrity is always threatened the moment processing begins. Ginsenosides degrade with high heat. Acemonan collapses under pasteurization. Allicin never forms if garlic is cooked before it has rested. Vanillin only exists because of months of careful enzymatic development. Rush the cure, and you have a flat bean worth a fraction of the price. Curcumin becomes bioavailable only in the right molecular company. Vetiver's aromatic complexity is carried in volatile fractions that steam distillation must capture precisely, or they are simply lost. The ancient farmers who built traditions around these plants did not know the compound names. They did not have gas chromatography or double-blind clinical trials. What they had was something we are in danger of undervaluing: centuries of careful attention to what worked and what didn't. They knew that garlic prepared one way healed, and garlic prepared another way merely flavored. They knew that vanilla beans cured slowly and patiently smelled unlike anything else on earth. They knew that ginseng grown wild and old was different from ginseng grown fast. What we now understand is why, and that understanding the science that validates the intuition is the most powerful tool a specialty farmer in the modern market can carry. The farm that will be profitable 5 years from now is not the one with the most acres under cultivation. It is the one where the farmer knows the difference between a 6-year root and a 3-year root, between cold-processed aloe and heat-treated bulk gel, between ceremonial saffron threads and low-grade commodity filament. That knowledge is the moat, and no one can dig it for you. If what we covered today gave you one new direction, one plant you are going to research further, one crop you had dismissed that deserves a second look, share this with a farmer who needs to hear it. Leave a comment with the crop that caught your attention and the region you are farming in. I read every one. Like this video if it gave you value. Subscribe to stay with us, because next week we go even deeper on the post-harvest and processing strategies that determine whether a specialty crop becomes a premium income or just an interesting experiment. The decision that changes your farm starts with one plant, planted in the right soil, at the right time, with the patience to let it become what it is capable of being. This content is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be taken as agricultural, financial, or medical advice. Consult qualified professionals before making planting or investment decisions.